This video is on the water flows and treatment at Montana Resources' active copper and molybdenum mine. So this schematic is just kind of an overview of how the water moves around the site. It includes some flow values, but for the purposes of this video, we're just going to kind of break down each step individually. This line diagram is just a simplified version of the picture that was in the previous slide. Some of the flow values have been blocked out to make it a little simpler and easier to understand and to read. And while I'm going through this process, I'm going to refer back to this line diagram. I think the best place to start when you're talking about water at Montana Resources is the Berkeley Pit, just because it's a groundwater sink for most of the groundwater uptown, and this is where all flows end up kind of accumulating. In the red circle, we have the Berkeley Pit pump house, and that's where the water leaves the pit. The water is then pumped along that red line through pipes and into the precip plant, which is where it ends. It's that little brown structure. So this is a close-up of the precipitation plant. In the picture, you can see that the pipe is pouring Berkeley water over the cans, and some ion exchange happens between the iron on the cans and the copper in the water. It allows the mine to recover practically free copper from the Berkeley Pit water before it's sent to further treatment methods. There's many different cells in the precipitation plant, and it can run Horseshoe Bend seep area water or Berkeley Pit water separately to keep those waters separated before later on in the process. Once the Berkeley water is done being ran through the precipitation plant, it follows that red line typically. The blue line shows the capability that we have to blend Horseshoe Bend area seep water with Berkeley water and run them together. But in this normal flow kind of schematic, it's just running along that red line and running to the NBMG weir, which is right at the bottom. This is a picture of the bottom of that red line. This is the NBMG weir flowing. On the other side of it, you can also see water. That's Horseshoe Bend area seep water that we keep separated, but we do have the ability to blend these. From the NBMG weir, the Berkeley Pit water will follow that red line to the Horseshoe Bend water treatment plant, which I'll talk about in a couple slides. There is an ability, that blue line, to mix it with Horseshoe Bend area water again or separately by itself into that equalization basin and then get pumped back up through the TK system back to the tailings dam. Once the Berkeley water goes to the Horseshoe Bend water treatment plant, we take advantage of lime to raise the pH of the water to precipitate all those heavy metals to the bottom into a sludge form. That's just a picture on the left of the plant. The middle picture is what a typical monitor looks like inside the water treatment plant. They got a lot of things going on, and they can control a bunch of different values. They can run just one stage, or they can do two stage for clarifying it. The treated Horseshoe Bend water then meets up with the return water line. It follows that red path up at the top and goes along the edge in that blue line. It is used in the mill and the concentrator area just as mine process water for everything that we need. After that water is used in the mine process, it is pumped up through the main tailings pump house all the way up to the tailings dam. The picture on the left shows the red line, kind of the path that it takes, and the picture on the right is one of the discharging pipes. Moving on to the Horseshoe Bend area seep water, this is separate from the Berkeley water. This is all the water that comes through the hillside. It's around like the garage area, and you can kind of see in the red circles where there might be puddles that accumulate. Like I said earlier, we do have the ability to run Horseshoe Bend area water through the precipitation plant separately from the Berkeley water, but in typical conditions, it just follows that red line down those holding ponds. From the bottom of that red line on the last slide, the Horseshoe Bend area water makes a jump into the equalization basin, which you can see pictured on the left. From the equalization basin, the mine does have the ability to run that water separately through the Horseshoe Bend water treatment plant, or it can be blended with Berkeley water, just depending on the water needs of the site. But typically that water is pumped from the equalization basin to TK1, which is that little building north. From that little building, you can see TK1. It follows that red line up to Booster 3, which is then can join with the other water that's going up there, the rest of the tailings. It can be mixed with that, and it's pumped onto the tailings dam. The other big portion of the mine water is the Yankee Doodle tailings pond, which is very north in the picture. You can see the Berkeley Pit in the south end of the picture. That blue water line shows the return water line that we also use. This is all gravity fed from the pump house at the very top of the dam. And this is the water that we send to the precipitation plant. That red little line that comes off from the main blue line, that's the water going to the precipitation plant, which will eventually be discharged. The rest of the blue line, we can reuse that water in the mines process once again. Another big portion of the water treatment on site is the polishing plant, which was recently built in 2019. The purpose of building this was to keep the Berkeley pit at a stable water elevation so that it doesn't go above the protective water line. It's from the red line from the last slide, and as you can see, this is where it comes in. The picture on the right shows the raw influent water comes in at about 11.1, 11.2 pH from the tailings dam, and that water is ran through multimedia filters. Those are those big white filters that you can see. They have 6 of them, and then we use CO2 injection to drop the pH down to around a 7.5, 7.4. And depending on the quality of the water going through there, if there's any salt in it, we also have the ability to run it through RO, reverse osmosis filters. It runs through the filters right in front of the RO systems, and then through those big lines. There is 7 of them total, 1A, 1B, and then 2 through 6. That water then goes to the product tank through that big filter effluent line, and that water is then discharged to the Silverbow Creek. Depending on water quality, we only really run this when water flows are low in Silverbow Creek. If the water flows are very high, we can run it straight from the filter and the CO2 injection just straight into the Silverbow Creek. For any reason, if the water that's in this product tank is not up to standards for discharge, or it's off spec, it can be ran through that pipe in the bottom right, and that pipe goes to a dredge pond on site. That dredge pond is then popped back up to the tailings dam and mine process water, and can really go anywhere. It's very complicated how the water flows can change on site, but I hope this kind of helped explain some of that.